People always ask me why I prefer camping alone. It's simple: no one to talk to, no one to entertain. Just the woods, the wind, and my thoughts. Last October, I took a solo trip to northern Washington deep into Olympic National Forest. It was late enough in the year that the air had that dry bite of cold, and the trails were empty. Perfect. I parked at a remote turnout, grabbed my pack, and hiked about 6 miles in before setting up camp. It was on a ridge near a creek, with tall pines stretching into the mist. I hadn't seen a soul the entire hike. Just birds, a few deer, and one fox. By sunset, I had a fire going, and my one-man tent pitched. The silence was so complete it almost rang in my ears. I remember thinking, this is what peace feels like. Around 10 p.m., the wind picked up. Normal for the area. I zipped into my sleeping bag and turned off my lantern. I drifted off to the sound of rustling leaves and distant water. But sometime after midnight, something changed. I woke up just like that. No dream, no noise, just a sudden alertness. The fire was dead, and the forest had gone completely still. Not a breeze, not even the chirp of a cricket. It felt wrong, like the woods were holding their breath. Then, I heard it. Not footsteps. Not exactly. More like shifting. Something brushing against leaves. One step at a time, slow, measured. Then stopping. I held my breath. It was coming from behind my tent, maybe 10 or 15 feet out. I flicked on my flashlight and shone it through the mesh. Nothing, just trees and darkness. Then the sound. Again. Closer this time. It wasn't the wind. It wasn't an animal. It was deliberate. Human. I shouted. Hey, who's out there? Half expecting it to be a ranger or some other late hiker. But nothing replied. No scurry of feet. No callback. The noise just stopped. I waited, gripping my knife, flashlight flickering slightly. Minutes passed. Eventually, the wind returned, and with it, the usual night sounds. Maybe I was being paranoid. Maybe a raccoon or a bear had wandered too close. But deep down, something told me that wasn't it. By morning, I convinced myself it had all been a bad dream. I packed my things, but something strange made me pause before leaving. Just outside my tent, maybe 5 feet from where I slept, there were marks in the dirt. Not footprints. More like drag marks. Short, crude lines, like something had been traced with a stick. I followed them a few feet and realized they formed a shape. A circle with jagged X's inside. Some sort of symbol dot. I froze. The lines weren't random. They were intentional. Someone or something had been watching me last night and left this. I should have left then. I know that now. But some combination of pride, curiosity, and stubbornness made me stay. I told myself it was probably some bored teenager screwing around. Besides, I had my hatchet, bear spray, and signal flare. I wasn't defenseless. That night, I built a larger fire and kept my flashlight beside me. I didn't even zip the tent fully, just so I could scan the woods easier. I ate jerky, stared into the flames, and waited. It started again around 2:17 a.m. I checked my watch. A soft, rhythmic tapping sound. Not on trees. On rock. I followed the noise with my ears. It came from across the creek, about 30 yards out. Tap, tap, tap. Then a pause. Then, again like a code. I shone my flashlight toward the sound, but all I caught were branches swaying. Then I heard something behind me. Crunch. I spun around, just in time to see a shadow duck behind a tree. Human-sized. No animal moves like that. I backed toward the fire, waving my light in every direction, shouting, "I'm armed. Back off." But there was no response. The crunching continued, but from multiple directions now, like I was being circled. Then the noises stopped completely. Then, I saw it at the edge of the trees, about 15 feet from camp, a figure, tall, thin, wearing what looked like dark clothing, maybe a hoodie, just standing there, perfectly still. I pointed the flashlight directly at it, and it didn't move. Not a twitch. I couldn't even see its face. After nearly a full minute, I blinked and it was gone. I fired the flare into the sky without thinking. The red light lit the treetops and scattered whatever was out there. I stayed up the rest of the night, weapon ready. I left at sunrise. Didn't even bother packing my gear properly, just shoved everything into my bag and bolted down the trail. I didn't feel alone. Not anymore. Halfway back, I stopped at a bend in the trail to catch my breath and found another one of those symbols carved into a fallen log. Deep, fresh. Same jagged X's, same circle. This wasn't some random prank. It followed me. The final stretch of the trail winds past a small ravine. As I passed it, something made me look up and I swear to God I saw two people standing at the ridge, dressed in all black, unmoving, watching me, even in daylight. Their presence chilled me. I stared back, frozen, until I remembered something. A ranger once told me about mountain cult activity in remote areas, greater than if you ever see one of them. Keep walking. If you see more than one, don't look at their eyes. I turned away, hiked faster than I thought my legs could move, and didn't stop until I reached my car. When I got back to the main road, I checked my phone finally had service. 5 missed calls from a number I didn't know. Voicemails were just static. One of them, though, had a whisper in it. I played it back again and again, but all I could make out was a rasped sentence. You looked. I haven't gone camping alone since, but sometimes, when I'm outside at night, I still hear tapping, and I still see marks, and I still wonder if I brought something back with me, something that doesn't like being seen. I've always liked the kind of silence only the woods can give you. Real silence. Not just the absence of noise, but that heavy, dense quiet that makes you hear your own heartbeat. This happened to me last summer, June 2024, when I went solo, camping in a place I wasn't supposed to be. A dried-out quarry, about 20 miles outside of Ashford, Washington. I won't say the exact location, because technically it was private property, but I'd heard rumors on a hiker's forum that it was stunning dead silent, remote, flat ground perfect for pitching a tent. I didn't tell anyone I was going. Dumb, I know, but I'd done dozens of solo trips. Brought my usual gear: water, food, fire starter, a knife, and my satellite GPS beacon. It was just one night. In and out. The trail to the quarry was barely a trail anymore. Overgrown, with thorn bushes swallowing the path. It took me almost 4 hours to get there. When I finally stepped into the open bowl of the quarry, the light hit it just right. It was like stepping into a massive, forgotten arena. Stone walls surrounded me on all sides, and the silence, thick as concrete dot. There were no birds, no bugs, not even the wind. I set up my tent near one of the old stone ledges. The ground was dusty and full of strange, broken rock. Some looked chipped by tools, almost like carvings, but I didn't think much of it. Ate my dinner, took a few pictures, and watched the sun vanish behind the rim by 10 p.m. I was in my sleeping bag, tent zipped tight, light off, and then the whispering started. At first, I thought it was the wind moving through cracks in the quarry wall, but it had rhythm, a cadence, almost like a chant. Very soft, just on the edge of hearing. I unzipped the tent halfway and poked my head out. Nothing. Pitch black outside, except for a slice of moonlight across the rock face. The whispering stopped. I closed the tent, chalked it up to wind or nerves. Then, just as I laid back, a stone hit the side of my tent hard. I bolted upright, grabbed my knife. My breathing felt wrong, like the air was too thin. I waited, heart thumping in my ears, listening. Then another stone hit, this time the roof of the tent. I burst out of the tent, flashlight up, scanning the quarry. No one, not even footprints in the dust. but right outside my tent 3 stones, perfectly placed, in a triangle. Asterisk, I didn't sleep that night. I sat up next to the tent, fire crackling, knife in hand. Every time I blinked, I swore I heard that whispering again. But the weirdest part, it always sounded like it was coming from beneath me. Around 4 a.m., the temperature dropped. Not just cooler cooled. My breath started to fog, and I was shaking even in my coat. I got up to collect more wood, and almost stepped into what looked like a hole, perfectly round shaft, maybe 3 feet wide, hidden behind a rock slab. That pit hadn't been there earlier. I knelt beside it, shining my flashlight down. Just blackness. The beam couldn't reach the bottom. I dropped a stone in, waited, no sound. Then I heard a voice, whisper soft and close. It came from the hole. Go back, it said it again. Go back. Then I heard something climb. Not fast, just one slow scrape, then another, like nails or fingers on stone. I staggered back and tripped, almost dropping the light. When I looked again, I saw something. Just for a moment, a pale hand gripping the inner edge of the pit, before slipping back down. That was it. I packed my gear in under 5 minutes, half sprinting out of the quarry with my pack bouncing behind me. But the farther I got from that place, the louder the whispering became. No longer a single voice. Many then they were saying my name. I didn't tell anyone about what happened. Not yet. I thought maybe I'd hallucinated the whole thing. That maybe the pit was some remnant of mining work, and the voices just my imagination. But then the dreams started. Asterisk for the next week. Every time I slept, I dreamed of the quarry. But in the dreams, it was alive. The stone walls were breathing. The pit in the ground pulsed like a throat, and something would always start crawling out. The hand, then the face, then the eyes. And when I woke up, find rocks on my floor. 3, placed in a triangle, just like at the campsite. The first time it happened, I convinced myself maybe I'd brought some back in my gear. By accident, the second time, I found them in my shower. That broke me. I burned everything I used on the trip, tent pack, even the boots. Drove it all out to a rural burn pile. Didn't matter. The rocks still came. One night, I stayed at a hotel 2 towns away. I woke up, groggy from sleep meds, walked into the bathroom and there was water running from the faucet, and steam on the mirror. Written in it, with a finger, were the words, "You opened the ground." I haven't been back to the woods since. I'm in therapy now. I sleep with lights on. I haven't heard the whispers in over 3 weeks. But just this morning, when I opened my front door, there was a small triangle of stones, dead center, on my porch, and a tiny hole in the dirt beside it, about 3 feet wide, getting deeper every day. I told you this story, not as a warning, but as a record, because something came back with me, and if I vanish, it's still down there, waiting. Asterisk. I don't care how many solo trips I've done, or how long I've been hiking. What happened last September in Idaho shook me to the bone. It was supposed to be a short weekend trip. I needed the break. Life had gotten heavy, job stress, a breakup, the kind of quiet that follows you around, even in crowded places. So I grabbed my gear and headed to a place I'd never camped before, Elk Pine Ridge, near the Selway Bitterroot Wilderness. It wasn't a marked trail, just something an old coworker mentioned in passing. He said it was beautiful, said it was quiet. He didn't say anything else. The hike in was rough. No clear trail after the first 2 miles. I bushwhacked through thick brush, scratched up my legs, and nearly stepped on a rattlesnake. By the time I reached the ridge, the sun was starting to dip and I was soaked in sweat. But the view was incredible. Rolling treetops, a sliver of a lake below. No sounds but the wind, no one around for miles. Just me, just the trees. I set up my tent in a small clearing, maybe 15 feet from a drop-off. I ate cold trail food, drank straight from my filtered bottle, and watched the sky turn purple, peaceful. I felt alone in a good way, until night fell. Around 11 p.m., I woke up for no real reason. The air had turned cold and damp. I lay there, listening. At first, all I heard was the rustling of leaves and the occasional snap of a branch. Then came a buzzing noise, like static from an old TV. Faint, intermittent, coming from the trees. I opened the tent flap and peeked out with my headlamp. That's when I saw it. A light in the woods, not a flashlight, not a lantern. It was white blue, and too high up, maybe 12 feet off the ground, moving side to side, like it was floating between the pines. I turned off my headlamp, froze. The light kept moving, then it stopped, then turned toward me. It didn't make sense. It had no beam, no source. Just a glowing orb hovering above the ground. I ducked back into my tent and zipped it up, heart pounding. I lay still for what felt like hours, listening. Then, in the distance, I heard something I'll never forget. A voice. A woman's, barely above a whisper. "You're not supposed to be here." I didn't sleep the rest of the night. Every sound felt amplified. Every gust of wind made me flinch. But nothing else happened. No more lights, no more voices. By dawn, I convinced myself it was just a trick of the eye, or maybe a drone someone was flying. I nearly packed up to leave, but stubbornness got the better of me. I wasn't going to let fear ruin my weekend. After a stiff coffee and a small fire, I decided to explore the ridge. The morning light made everything feel normal again. Almost I found something maybe a quarter mile from Camp Stone Circle. Old, sunken into the ground, covered in moss and pine needles. In the center was a rotted tree stump, carved with symbols I didn't recognize. Sharp angles, repetitive patterns. They didn't look like animal markings. I snapped a picture on my phone, but the screen flickered and froze. When it finally responded, the photo was just black. I took another dot, same thing. On the way back, I found footprints in the dirt. Bare feet, human, small, no treads, just toes and heel marks. Leading toward the direction of my tent, but never returning. I stood frozen in the woods, my ears ringing with that same faint buzzing from the night before. Then I heard something else. Laughter, soft, giggling, from behind a nearby tree. I ran. When I got back to camp, my gear had been moved, not stolen, rearranged. My knife was stuck in the trunk of a tree, point first. My sleeping bag was unzipped and stuffed with leaves. My boots were facing the woods, neatly placed together, like someone wanted me to follow, or walk away. That night, I didn't light a fire. I stayed inside my tent, knife in hand, counting the seconds between every noise. Just after midnight, I heard the voice again, but this time, it wasn't outside. It was right behind my tent wall. A slow whisper. "Are you listening now?" I made the mistake of opening the tent. It was standing in the clearing, still, wrong. At first I thought it was a person, but its limbs were too long, arms down past the knees. The skin glowed faintly, like embers under pale ash. It had no face, just indentations where eyes should be, and it was watching me, even though it had no eyes. I knew it saw me. I couldn't move, couldn't scream. Then, slowly, it tilted its head, as if studying me, and raised one finger to its mouth. Then the trees behind it shifted, and more of them stepped out, same height, same movement, like they were cut from the same wrong fabric. I blacked out. I don't remember falling asleep. I just remember waking up on the forest floor, my tent gone, gear scattered, and the sun already high. There were no tracks, no symbols, no stone circle, but around where my tent had been, dozens of small rocks were arranged in concentric circles, like eyes, staring up from the earth. I didn't stop hiking until I reached my car. Didn't look back once. Later, I tried posting about it online, but my phone had been wiped. No photos, no notes. Just one new file in my audio folder entitled 17 seconds long. Just static, and at the end, a woman's voice whispered, almost buried in the noise, "You shouldn't have looked." I haven't camped since. I don't think I ever will again, because sometimes, when the night is still and there's no wind, I hear the buzzing start again, and I see eyes where there should be none. Asterisk. I'm not new to camping alone. I've done solo trips in Arizona, the Rockies, even parts of Alaska. But what happened in early April 2024 is something I still haven't fully processed. And I haven't camped since. This was supposed to be a short, quiet weekend away in Northern California, near a place called Dry Creek Ridge, not far from Mendocino. I'd never camped there before, but a buddy who does backcountry hikes mentioned it had this beautiful secluded stretch by a dried-out creek bed, perfect for people looking to avoid crowds. I found a turnoff on a logging road, parked my truck, hiked in about 5 or 6 miles until I reached a small hollow. It was flat, quiet, nothing around but trees and rock. The air was damp and pine-scented. I set up camp, made dinner on my little propane burner, and spent most of the evening journaling in the tent, around 11 p.m. I shut off my headlamp and let the darkness settle. That's when the tapping started. At first it was light, like a branch blowing against the tent fabric. But the wind wasn't blowing. The trees weren't moving. It was deliberate. I sat up, froze, and just listened. The tapping moved from one side of the tent to the other. Tap, pause, tap, tap, higher. This time, like someone testing the walls, I whispered, "Hello?" thinking maybe an animal had brushed up against it. But no animal taps in a pattern like that. Then came the worst part. The sound of breathing, just behind the tent. Slow, heavy, and wrong. I grabbed my flashlight and unzipped the front, ready to jump out and scare off whatever was there. I turned. On the light dot, nothing, no footprints, no animals, just pine needles and the still woods. But when I turned back to zip the tent shut, I froze. There was a handprint on the back of the tent, long fingers, smeared, as if it had dragged downward. Number 1 was out there. I would have heard footsteps, would have seen them. I didn't sleep that night. I sat up, clutching my knife, listening to every sound. The tapping didn't come back until just before sunrise. Asterisk. I tried convincing myself in the morning that I was just tired. Maybe it was an animal. Maybe I dreamt the handprint. But the more I looked at it in daylight, the more I realized it was real. And it wasn't made by anything normal. The fingers were too long, the spacing too narrow. Still, I decided to stay another night. Dumb, I know. But I'd hiked so far in, and part of me wanted to prove I wasn't just scaring myself. I spent the day hiking farther up the ridge. I came across something strange, maybe a mile from Campan, unnatural clearing, shaped almost like a perfect oval. The trees stopped abruptly, and in the center was this sunken pit, maybe 6 feet across, full of wet leaves and stone. At the edge of the pit was an old animal skull, coyote, maybe, clean, like it had been placed there. I backed away. Every instinct I had screamed that the area was wrong. When I got back to camp, the tent had been unzipped. I never leave it open, ever. Not because I think someone will steal something, but to keep bugs out. Nothing was missing. But inside, laid perfectly in the center of my sleeping bag, was a pine cone, covered in black soot, like it had been burned. I didn't have a fire. There was no ash anywhere nearby. I nearly left right then, but the sun was dipping, and I didn't want to get stuck on the trail at night. I stayed one more night, and I regret it with every cell in my body. Asterisk. That second night started normal enough. I kept the lantern on, didn't sleep. Every hour or so, I'd step out and look around the camp, but there was nothing. Just me, trees, and that silence that's too complete. Around 2:40 a.m., I heard footsteps, crunching leaves. 1, 2, Stopped then. Again. But this time, closer. I turned off the lantern and waited. I didn't even breathe. The footsteps circled the tent, then stopped right behind me. I turned slowly, barely moving, and pressed my ear to the fabric. There was someone standing, inches away. I could hear their breathing, again wet, raspy, like gurgling air through water. I raised my flashlight, hand shaking, and turned it on. The light shone through the tent wall and what I saw nearly made me scream. A face, pressed against the thin nylon dot, not human. The skin was pale, almost gray. The eyes were too far apart, wide, and black, and the mouth, it was open, pressed flat, lips stretched in a silent scream, like it was trying to bite through the tent. Just staring, unmoving. I dropped the light, grabbed my knife. Then I heard it speak, not with a voice on my head. Let me in. I don't remember unzipping the tent. I don't remember running. I just know I reached my truck at dawn, covered in scratches, panting, nearly delirious. My tent and gear. I left it all. 3 weeks later, a park ranger called me. They'd found my campsite. The tent was shredded, like something had torn it open from the inside. But they also found something else. A pine cone, burned black, sitting exactly where I'd been sleeping, and beside it, another handprint, longer this time, like something had grown. I've always liked camping in places people forget about. I'm drawn to the feeling of being off-grid, completely isolated from everything and everyone. I've done solo trips for over a decade, so I didn't think twice when I found Cold Ash Point marked faintly on an old Forest Service map. It wasn't on any GPS, no listings, not even on Google Earth, just a faded name and an old ranger marking, unmaintained trail, not for public use. Perfect. It was up in the Cascade Mountains, deep in Washington state. I parked off a service road that had clearly been dead for years. Trees and brush had nearly swallowed it whole. Then I hiked nearly 4 hours through dense, dead-still forest, until I found it. A narrow bluff, surrounded by towering fir trees, blanketed in moss, and dead quiet. There was no sign anyone had been there in decades. I set up my tent near a cluster of rocks. From the bluff edge, I could see nothing but trees for miles. Not a road, not a light, not even contrails overhead, just wilderness. Total silence, until that first night. I fell asleep quickly, exhausted from the hike. Then I woke up, dead still. My eyes popped open at 3:17 a.m. No sound, no movement, just this pressure, like something huge was pressing down on the earth itself. I sat up and heard something breathing. Outside the tent, close. It wasn't an animal. Too slow, too wet. It sounded like someone exhaling through thick, sticky mucus. I reached for my flashlight. Then, something brushed along the wall of my tent. A finger, just one, dragging, slowly. I didn't move, didn't breathe. Then it stopped, and whispered, "You came back." I didn't even know I'd fallen asleep again. It was just suddenly morning, and when I stepped outside the tent, I saw footprints, bare, human, all around the tent, in a perfect circle. There were no footprints coming to or from that circle, just the circle itself. Asterisk, I should have packed and left immediately. Every instinct in me screamed to run, but my brain kept pushing this weird numbness over me, like I couldn't think straight, like I was fogged over. I tried to hike out that morning, made it about 2 miles, before I realized something was wrong. I passed the same dead tree 3 times. A huge rotting stump with a split down the middle like a mouth. I wasn't looping. I was walking in a straight line. The forest had changed. The sun should have been above me by then, but it stayed low, weak, grayish, like it was stuck behind fog that didn't move. I couldn't get a signal. GPS just spun. Compass needle drifted. My map useless. Nothing looked right, and the deeper I walked, the more the woods began to Trees weren't just dead. They were blackened, burned from the inside out. Mushrooms with oily skins grew in clusters. The air smelled sweet and wrong, like rotting fruit. Then I heard it again. That voice. It wasn't behind me this time. It was above me, in the trees. "You're not supposed to leave." I dropped everything and ran. Eventually, I tripped and fell into what I thought was a clearing. It wasn't. It was a grave, not a human one, something older. There were dozens of stone piles arranged in a spiral, each marked with little symbols, carved into bark, and small bones placed on top. I staggered back, looked around, and saw someone watching me. Not someone, something, 15 feet away, half hidden behind a tree. Its head was all wrong to round, no features, just dark holes where eyes should be, and long arms that dangled low, the fingertips nearly brushing the forest floor. It didn't move, neither did I. I blinked, gone. I ran again toward Cold Ash Point, toward my gear. I got back to my tent just before dark. Everything was where I left it, but something was off. The tent was zipped shut. I left it open. Inside, there were wet footprints. Just two. As if someone had been standing in the middle, watching. I collapsed near the fire pit and didn't even try to sleep. At some point, deep in the night, I saw a light in the trees. Not a flashlight, a lantern. It flickered with a sickly orange glow, and it was moving through the forest, far too smooth, like it was floating. Then I saw the figure again. This time, it walked into full view, tall, wrong. Its face was blurry, like my eyes couldn't fully focus on it. The lantern hovered just above its hand, or what I think was a hand. It didn't look like it touched the ground. It stopped about 20 feet from my camp and slowly tilted its head sideways, like a curious dog. Then it raised one hand, pointed behind me. I turned, and something was standing just outside the firelight. I didn't hear it approach, didn't smell it, didn't see it until that thing pointed. It was smaller than the lantern carrier, hunched, trembling, skin pale, and stretched like it had never been in sunlight. It didn't have a face, just that same blank oval. But I knew, somehow, it was watching me then. Both of them spoke at once. Inside my head, "Greater than we remember you. You came back. You are not allowed to leave." I screamed, ran into the woods. Didn't stop. Didn't sleep. I don't even remember how I found the truck. All I know is, I drove until the sun rose, and didn't stop shaking until well into the next day. That was 2 months ago, and I haven't been alone since. I hear footsteps in my hallway at night. I hear whispering from under my bed, and last week I found a pine needle spiral under my pillow. I don't know what I brought back from Cold Ash Point, but it wants to go home, and it wants to take me with it.